How do you prepare for and or beat the new in-game game mode coming out to ZZZ very soon, guys? Well, I'm glad you came because that's what we're talking about in today's video, guys. Going over a bunch of teams that you can definitely use for this game mode, what teams you should be using certain supports on, which teams you shouldn't be using certain supports on in terms of the power level these teams have, and how you can actually complete content without using the best of the best on the teams and still get the max rewards for that certain stage. Make sure you're not kerfuckling yourself in that content. So without further ado, guys, let's talk about the new 4-team to 3-team game mode. Obviously, you can go up to 4 teams, as you can see right here, guys. We're taking basically what we got from the live stream here in terms of like the type matchups we saw there, the type resistances we saw there, and everything like that, and kind of compiling it all into these teams today, guys. So as you can see, let's just go ahead and get off one thing off up here, guys. The main enemies we saw here was weak to ice and ether. So we have a whole category here that literally relates to ice and ether type enemies, because that's mainly what you're going to be facing. Even if you look here at the final stage 1-1, ice and ether with no resistance, and then you have ice and ether again with no resistance. So you're going to be needing at least 2 ice and ether teams on this, and then you'll be needing at least 1 fire team, 1 physical team, and probably 1 lightning team as well. One other thing I want to note to you guys before we hop into the air, I definitely didn't hit every single team combination you can do in the game. I just hit the team combinations I could think of. So if you have any more team combinations or comments, leave it in the comment section down below, obviously, guys. And one more thing I want to note here as well, guys, I'm not going to be putting best in slot teams for every single team here, because I do think for most people's accounts, you probably don't have every single character in the game, meaning you have to plan these teams out accordingly to what you actually do have in your account, and that means scaling the team based off of what you have on your account and what you don't have on your account, and how good certain teams are and how bad certain teams are, right? So if you have a team that's absolutely godlike, maybe you can remove a character from that team and slot it into another team to make that team better, to make sure you're getting max stars on that particular stage, and then you can possibly get, higher stars on the more fodder team, the team that's not as good, right? So let me stop yapping now, guys. Let's get into ice and ether first, starting off with, as you can see here, let's start off with Yixuan first. Now, Yixuan, what I think needs to happen, guys, I think you either have to have Lucia on the team, or you need to have Panda Yun on the team. Now, these options here are going to completely depend on if you're using Manato for your fire DPS or not, because he will be free to play. You can use him for this game mode. He's fire, so obviously he fits that niche pretty nicely. If you have him on your account, I would definitely recommend using Yixuan with Panda Yun, so you can give him the better support and extra support he might need being an A-ranked DPS. And for this third category here, which is our third slot on the team, is usually flip-flopped around depending on whatever the second slot is. So if you have your best in slot here for the second slot, then the worst in slot here would be the third slot, right? So then you go from like worst to best here as well, where this is a kind of like best to worst case scenario here for the second slot. This will be changing later on through the list, because I completely forgot about this whole fucking dynamic here, and I kind of switched it around at one point. But for right now, guys, this is how it's kind of structured here. So if you're running Lucia, then I would recommend either running Caesar or Pulchra here. If you're running Panda Yun, then I think Pulchra or Jufufu would work here as well. I don't really recommend using Yixuan, Lucia, and Jufufu, depending on the other teams you have on your account. Obviously, if you have no one on your account that is going to take use of Jufufu, then go ahead and use Jufufu on this team, and it's not going to affect you too much. Let's go ahead and hop into Miss Miyabi here next, guys. Obviously, her best in slot is going to be Miss Yanagi here. So if you're using Yanagi, then you obviously are going to be speccing into Shokaku. Now, one big note I want to make here with Ice and Ether, guys, it has a pro and a con. Pro, obviously, can sync up with every other type in the game, because as of right now, from what they've shown, there is no resistance to Ice and Ether, or when you're using Ice and Ether DPS, there's no resistance on the other end, meaning you can take use of any other type in the game. If you're going to use someone off type, I would definitely use someone lower of value if someone's not as good with Miyabi, because Miyabi is that good. Generally, what I would recommend here for Miyabi, guys, is use another anomaly character. You could maybe slot in a Piper here if you had another like Alice maybe or something like that. You could literally slot in a Piper here and be completely fine, and then you can run it with like an Astra Yao or maybe even like a Yuzuha here to make sure it functions properly. Obviously, this also depends on how much your account is built up and how good your Miyabi is, if you're running a Restig or not. You could honestly even sub in Shokaku if you needed to, if you needed that support on the other teams, but that's my general rule of thumb for this, guys. If you have Yanagi, I would just automatically run Shokaku here, because you don't want to be taking up too much value in your support category here, because you're already taking up such a valuable lightning DPS on the game. This means you would either need to have Seed or Silver Soldier aiming in your account to complete that lightning stage, or you would need someone that's off type that's super strong as well. I would say Vivian Shokaku is probably your best set here, because of the fact that it's using an Ice and Ether, which plays directly into this, and as as you'll see later here, guys, is we obviously are going to be having resistances to ether here for sure. We don't really have any resistance to ice, so it doesn't really matter on Shokaku's end. But it does definitely have resistance to ether. So making sure you're using Vivian in this kind of content right here where she's strong in is actually going to make her that much better. So that's why I kind of have her paired up here with Miyabi. And then obviously Asriyao's here is if you're completely destitute of beating this. Now hopping into Ellen Joe here, guys. Ellen's a little bit weird because Ellen's a lot weaker, it seems like. So for me on this, I added a lot more supports here in terms of this category, and I've added a lot more here as well. So for Ellen, her chart's a little bit different, guys. So number one for me is like Ellen goes into Seed, which goes into Lycon. I think this is a great team here on its own. I guess you could also go Seed to Asriya here if you wanted to as well, and also Seed to Shokaku could work too. But one thing I really want to point out here is actually these other two teams, because I do think these are kind of interchangeable and they don't really play to the last level of the team here, right? I think that, you know, you could run Lighter on the team as well and then run Seed. I think that works. I think you could run Ellen with Lycon and it works. I think here, though, either way here, like both of these characters here, right? So if we put the little dot right here, I think if you have this, either of these directions will work for this character, and I think it works pretty fine. Just use the lesser of the two evils. If you need like Austrial's support for another team, use it there. That's what I would recommend. Okay, guys, hopping into our next team now, which is going to be a Hugo team. Now, Hugo really wants a Lighter. I'm not going to lie. If you have Lighter and you have Hugo, I would definitely recommend pairing those up. I think there are some teams that definitely like Lighter. I will say the value that Hugo gets out of Lighter really allows him to use any type of stun character after the fact. Not to say Lycon can't, because I think Lycon can as well. But I think the amount of value that you're getting from your Lighter to Hugo is absolutely insane, from the extra stun timer to the also the increased damage and resistance for the ice type weak enemy you're going to be facing is going to be massive. And then you can run like a fodder stun character here. Hell, I don't care. Fucking run goddamn fucking Anby there. Electric Anby there. Literally, you can run anything, and I think literally Lighter and Hugo could probably get the job done with just them. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. But that's all that I have to mention now on Ice and Ether, guys. Obviously, this is gonna be your most prevalent type from the, you know, the information we have thus far, because obviously you're gonna be needing two different teams for this. So obviously, pick two of these teams. For the anomaly-based teams, definitely make sure you're using Vivian on this end, because it does get a lot harder to start using Vivian on some of these other scenarios, like with Fire, like with Physical. So with Physical, for example, like if you're using Alice here, or if you're using Jane Doe here, if you're using Piper here, you're obviously not going to be able to use Vivian. For Fire, you can't really use Bernice with Vivian here either, so you definitely want to make sure you're utilizing Vivian where she can be used. I think she can work for Electric type as well, but you are kind of kerfuckled where Vivian's use case is, so if you have Vivian, I would definitely recommend using her in the Ice and Ether stages if you can. Let's hop into Lightning next, guys. Starting off with Seed first, guys. I think obviously best in slot scenario here, guys, is going to be Orphie and Magnets, and this is where we started getting off kilter a bit with the grading system. If you're using Orphie on this team here, obviously best in slot is going to be Trigger all the way around. I think this is a great team. Do I recommend you use that? No. I recommend if you're going to be using this, you go to Nicole. I think that is the logical option here, to use the 4-star Nicole here. She's pretty universal. She can slot in here just nice. Hell, I think you could even throw Lucy in here as well and run Lucy there. I think you could do it. I think it could work. Seed, Silver Soldier Ambi, Trigger, Nicole also works here as well. Obviously, Seed with any other attack character can work, and then you would run it with a better buffer. Maybe you'd run like an Astrial here could work. Maybe you could run Nicole here as well. It works. This is why I put Nicole here, because I think Nicole does benefit this team quite a bit. It's not a rupture-based team, meaning you can take use of defense shred and everything Nicole's able to offer you in terms of the extra, like, I think crit rate buff she's able to provide. So this can also help every other DPS there. Stacked up with like Orphie's defense shred can be really nice, and then also you're getting buffed from everyone else. So you don't have to worry as much about Nicole buffing the team as much as you're debuffing the enemies, right? With Yanagi, I definitely recommend running like Piper here, so you can alleviate another like anomaly slot if you had it. And then you would run like a Yuzuha or Astrial. I definitely would recommend one of the two of this scenario. You could also, if your team performs well enough, run one of these two characters as well. Run Rina or Caesar King if you can get away with it, to free up Yuzuha for the less prevalent anomaly-based team that you have. The reason I don't really recommend Lucy as much here, guys, is because I feel like it could be a bit too hard in terms of the buff aspect to make sure this team's clearing properly. Like, she gives a 600 attack buff, but she gives 1,000. She gives pin ratio, which I think pairs up a lot nicer with this here. And then also Caesar King is allowing you to do more damage to the enemy as well, and putting that little shield down on you, which gives you anti-interrupt for someone like Piper when she's spinning to win, right? If you're running an Alice here on the team, guys, probably Rina, Caesar King, or you could even opt in for a Lucy as well. I think Alice does hold the power to actually make use of this. And for Miyabi as well, guys, if you're using Miyabi, these are obviously best in slot partners here, and that means you're not using Miyabi here for any of your ice type teams here, right? So you're giving up that slot there for the use of Lucia here. I don't think you give up one of your best in slot supports if you're using this deadly combo right here. On to Lightning next, guys. If you're using Silver Soldier Ambi, I honestly recommend you just go this full route. Like, this right here will literally give you the best, most optimal shit ever, right? And I think Silver Soldier Ambi right now needs it. Maybe with the buff, it's not as true. If the buff turns out being good, maybe you slot in to use a Pulchra here as well. I think that is another viable option to use there, but it's only if the buff is good, right? So if the buff is uppers, then you run that. As for the other team here, guys, obviously Seed, gonna be great. Give her a buff, give her a buff. It's gonna be great. They're both lightning type enemies, and then you run Pulchra here as well, being the physical type, which if we look at lightning here, guys, which if we look at the resistance here, it's to fire, guys. So obviously you're gonna be getting kind of fucked with Orphie if you run Orphie in any type of these stages. That's why I do recommend Trigger being the better support here to allow you to do extra lightning type damage. With Seed here, it's a better matchup just because of the fact you're not running into the fire type resistance here, guys. But that's all that I have to say in terms of your lightning type characters. Pick one of these teams, run one of these teams, they will be absolutely golden and good to go for you. Miss Piper, Liper Diaper. Okay, guys, the best A-rank DPS in the game until Manato comes out, surely, right? I think you run it with Bernice and then Yuzaha as well. I think you do need this combo. I think Bernice falls off just a little bit, and I think Yuzaha really needs to be on this team to kind of step up the damage here. Though, not the only option here. I think you could run her with Yanagi as well. It also works out pretty well, and then obviously you run her with a Caesar King there. I think this also works pretty well here, too. The reason why you probably won't see much of Vivian over here is because physical is going to be, guys, it has the resistance. It has literally a resistance to ether type enemies with physical, so that's why you don't see her much up here. Caesar King works here well, and I think you could also probably run Lucy here as well. Same thing for Bernice. I think Bernice maybe could potentially take use of Caesar King here, though I do think if you're running Piper as your main DPS, Bernice is a sub DPS, you really do need the extra support of Yuzaha here, and I think that's the best in slot scenario. If you're running Miyabi, I do still think you either go with Lucy here or Caesar King here, because Caesar King can link up with Piper, and also we can take use of Miyabi's ability linking up with Piper as well. So you get 3 full smiley face if we run this, and then obviously Lucy if you can run it to make sure you're alleviating some of these stronger supports on your account for other teams. Hopping into Alice next, guys, I think Alice could be ran with Bernice or Piper. If you're going to run this, though, I think you do run with Yuzaha. Same thing with Jane Doe, guys. I think Jane Doe can be really, really good for Alice, actually, and then I think you run her with Caesar King. For Yanagi here, guys, I think you could run her with Nicole. I think this could work, or you run her with Caesar King. I think that could also be a viable option, just because of how strong Yanagi is going to be, and then you also get the defense right there as well, which is nice. Now, on to Jane Doe, guys. Jane Doe, Piper, I think you run Yuzaha. I think you can run into some DPS issues with this team. Yanagi will be someone like Austrial. I think if you're running her with Jane Doe, guys, you fucking Nicole or Caesar King can also work here. I think Lucy could actually work here as well, but we should have enough slots. Or one of your lower ranking support type characters, like a Nicole, which is actually pretty good, like Caesar King, which is decent, or like a Lucy as well, can also work there. That's all I have to mention in terms of the physical typing, guys. So hopping into our first fire type was going to be Miss Evelyn, guys. I think Evelyn can run with Seed or can run with Austrial. I think if you have Evelyn on your account, I think 100% you run Austrial. I don't think there's any ifs, ands, or buts about it, guys. I think you will run with Austrial one way or another. So if you have Austrial, I think you can forgo Austrial in any of these other teams. Put her on her team with Evelyn because this is the best in slot. She takes the most use out of it because she does allow you to do more chain attacks and does a lot more damage with quick assist and stuff like that. With that being said, I think you technically could pair up Austrial and maybe run her with Seed as well. I think that's an option. If you're going to be running Austrial, though, genuinely, guys, run Nicole or run Lucy here. That, like, literally, do not use any of your other stronger supports because I think really all you need here is Austrial to make it functional. If you're going to be running Seed, I think running Lighter here can work. I think running Jufufu here can work. Obviously, we have the Fire type here, which pairs up with her Fire type. He'll also be buffing Fire type damage, and Jufufu obviously is going to be helping with chain attack damage, which she's able to do. So both of these are options for this team. I think if you have Austrial, though, 100% you run her. If you have a situation where you have Evelyn and Hugo on your account, you definitely put Lighter with Hugo, guys, okay? On to the next, guys. Free to play, free to play, free to play. Now with this one, guys, I will say this. If you have Manato, you have Lucia, you run her with Lucy every time. And then you go Pulchra for the final option. She gives a damage bonus, that's nice. I guess you could also run with Caesar King as well. Caesar King doesn't work out as well. The only reason I recommend Caesar King is because Caesar King offers attack buff, which can play into sheer damage. But one thing Caesar King does do that I think a lot of people overlook is this right here, guys. When Caesar King performs a perfect block, retaliation, defensive assist, or basic attack dead end, which is literally holding her basic attack down, she increases damage taken from all enemies by 25%. So they already do 100% defense shred. She actually pairs in super nicely here and can actually be a great addition to the team. So if you had Caesar King, you don't know where to use her with your Manato. I think it works out really well. If you don't have Lucia, you run Pandayun here, and I think you run Astra Yao or Caesar King as well here. Obviously, Astra Yao gives the biggest attack buff, which would then in turn give him a bigger sheer force damage bonus increase. So I think this is an option here as well. So this is my chart for him. And then finally, Orphie, guys. If you have Orphie in your account, you have a lot of options. One to name here, I think actually Orphie paired with Manato could actually kind of cook. The reason I feel like this is because first of all, you have a fire sub DPS, a fire main DPS. If we take a look at what Orphie is able to work with here in terms of like her additional ability, which obviously doesn't help him out too much, literally gives aftershock damage, extra defense ignore. We're going to be running this obviously with a support type character in Lucia here, or a stun type character here, right? If you're running her with Pandayun, guys, you kind of get kerfuckled on her ability, so her DPS drops a little bit here. So you really do want, I guess you would need Lucia here, guys. So I guess I should say, if you're going to run her, you need Lucia. Don't know why I put Pandayun here because her ability doesn't work here with that. So yeah, you need Lucia here for this team to work. But as for this team, guys, Silver Soldier Ambi works here as well. And then obviously you can run Pulchra or Trigger here. That works. Seed, Pulchra, Trigger, any support character. She works perfectly fine here. I think this is the teams you run here, guys. Overall, this is my overview of the teams you use. Obviously, you won't be focusing a lot on Ice and Ether because that is taking up the majority of your teams here. But you can interplay some of these teams, right, guys? And this is what I mean by the importance of supports. Most teams either use one, at least, to 2 supports on every single team. There are very few teams in the game that are using just 0 supports. Like Hugo, for example. I guess Hugo's using 2, right? At bare minimum, you're running at least 4 supports. At max, you're running 8 supports. So you need to make sure you're divvying these characters out properly. Like I said at the beginning of the video, guys, if a team works out amazingly for you, or maybe remove that best in slot support, fit it somewhere else. If it has a good use case somewhere else, maybe you drop that team performance some, but as long as you're still able to clear, I think these teams that I've given you today will still be able to clear for you. This is how you should be preparing, guys, for your account and how you should be building teams for your account. You need to have some give and take here and there. This is for casual players. It's obviously not for whales to have every character on their account, right? Just run the best in slot teams for everything, you'll clear it. This is for people like me and that guy in the comment section that loses every one of his 50-50s. They don't have every character on their account, okay? This is what I recommend to you guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below on teams that I missed. And that's going to do it for me, guys. Catch you in the next one. Later. Bye-bye.